So now we're going to do a new ride along, and the focus on this one is the use of arrays with methods. So the first thing we're going to do is use a method that takes an element of an array and prints its value. And to do that, we're going to use the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So here you see I've got a program that's all primed as usual with the static system console at the top and the debug pause at the end. So let's go ahead and create an array of strings called minors, and I'm just going to initialize it without doing the new or declaring the number of elements or anything like that. And for those of you who are familiar with this story, particularly the Disney version of it, you'll know these names: Dopey, Grumpy, Doc, Happy, capitalize Happy, Bashful, Sleepy, and Sneezy. All right. So now we've got the array minors declared and initialized. Now what I'd like to do is write a for loop that iterates over that array. So I equals 0 for as long as I is less than minors.length. And each time we'll increment the minors index. So before we fill in the statements here in the block for the for loop, let's go ahead and create the method that we're going to want to use to print the name of the minor. So it'll be a private static method. It's not going to return anything because we just want it to print. We'll call it print minor, and it takes a string. And we'll name that string locally minor. And then all it needs to do is a write line. That's it. So the question is, how do we pass the value of one of these array elements into the print minor method? Well, it's not any different from what you might think. We just say print minor using minors and then the current index. So that will send the current element, which is a string because we're looking at an array of strings, and it'll send that as the string argument to this parameter in print minor. So let's see if that works. Click start. And here it goes. Let's see what we get. Yep, we got all the names printed, and then press any key to continue. So far, so good. What happens if instead of sending a single element, you want to send the entire array to a method? That's a little bit different. So before I show you how to do that, we need to talk about some principles. In order to understand how to pass an array as a parameter, you need to have just an initial introduction to the notion of calling by value versus calling by reference. So with the methods we built so far, you pass parameters by value. That is, you send something that is of value type. Everything that you define that's an int or a string or a double or a char or any of those built-in types, that is a value type. When you call with a value, what happens is a copy of the variable that's in the main method will get sent to the called method as a parameter. So it's a copy. It means that no matter what you do to that variable in the method, it doesn't do anything to the value that was passed in the calling method. And that's different from call by reference. If you do a call by reference, that means that instead of sending the value of the variable to the subordinate method or the called method, you're sending a pointer to the variable. So the effect of that is that when you change the variable in the called method, the variable is changed in the calling method as well, because they're both pointing at the same thing. So if you do call by value, you're working on a copy in the called method. If you're doing call by reference, you're working on exactly the same variable. Both the caller and the called have pointers to the same variable. And it turns out that arrays are always passed by reference. Not array elements, as we just built in the write-along, but if you send a whole array, it's passed by reference. So let's take a look at what that really means. So now let's create a method that accepts the whole array as a parameter. So the method I'm going to create be called sort minors. So we'll start as usual with private static, and then it's not going to return a value, so we set its value, its type as void. And then sort minors is its name, and it's going to take an array of strings. So the way you'd specify that is just to say string and brackets to indicate that this parameter is going to be passed as an array of strings. And we'll call the array, how about minors array? There we go. And all we want this thing to do is to sort the array that's coming in. So it'll sort minors array. So you'll see up here when minors was initialized, it's not in sorted, it's not in alphabetically sorted order, but here, after this runs, it'll be in alphabetical order. So then let's put some print statements in here and call the sort method, and we'll see what the array looks like before and after the call. So first let's do a write line. Just says before call to array to sort minors. And then on another line we'll write, we'll use this string.join that we learned about recently, and we'll just print whatever was in minors. Then let me just put a line break there. And then we'll call sort minors, and we'll send it the minors array. So now this is going to appear here to the sort minors method. And then afterwards, just going to copy these two writes from line 17, put them here, and say after call to sort minors. And then we'll just print the whole thing out again. And then just for the heck of it, I'll take these two lines and put them here after the sort, and we'll call it in sort minors. In sort minors after sort. And we need to change this from minors to minors array. And there we go. So what you expect to have happen is, after this for loop runs, we'll get into the new code we've written, and we'll write out before call to sort minors, and then a list of the minors in array order. Sort minors, so we'll come down here, sort the minors, and write the array in the array order after it's sorted. And then here, we'll take a look at what the original array looks like back in the main method. All right, I have pressed F5. Now let's take a look at what happens. So before the call to sort minors, we had the array in its initial unsorted sequence. In sort minors after the sort, you can see everything is nicely sorted in alphabetical order. But after the call to sort minors in main, the array we originally sent is also in sort sequence. Why is that? It's because it's actually the exact same array. Minors points to an array with this content. When we called sort minors, we sent a pointer to sort minors. This points to exactly the same memory location that stores this content. So when we modified the content in here, it gets modified here as well.